A 10-acre project or better?
In general, that is the profile of
For a
this
plan,
type of.
for a
this
plan
type of
development
project.
district, yes, sir, I agree. But this, your ordinance has this mini, basically, built in for 3 acres or better.
I have one more question. If this is not approved tonight, you will still be able to proceed with the majority of this project.
Well, we'd go to city council, and city council would have 2 bites at this.
I understand that,
Yes, ma'am.
I understand that. But it would not hinder you from proceeding with the Georgetown Communications. They could still do anything.
Almost everything.
Almost everything with it. And then the tar box residents, and then the warehouse properties, those would still be able to continue, is that correct?
The historic districts, excuse me, the historic structures have got some protections now, so they would be used as they currently are. The difference would be in the waterfront commercial zoning
Right.
that currently exists, that's gonna look a lot different. A lot.
I guess I'm leaving. So, why do you need to rezone?
We need to change the uses on the waterfront from waterfront commercial to single-family residential. We need to have some flexibility that we can use with pervious and impervious ratios, because you get more pervious surface and you get more open space, and it's because we want to be good neighbors. We want to give you more as the residents than what they get under the by right zone. So it's more open space, more pervious, the contractual requirement to maintain these 2 historic structures. You get to cap some of the development density that could otherwise be there, barring some catastrophic fires or other kind of things that would happen. You have a tree ordinance anyway, but we get to protect by this ordinance some historic and grand trees. They are protected, but this is a layer of protection for that. You get some resiliency upgrades on Cannon Street that you otherwise wouldn't have, and you get some improvements to your flooding issues on Cannon Street that you otherwise wouldn't have. And the city, under our plan, with MOU, gets some better access to public waterways that the city doesn't have to pay for.
Let me ask Horace if it's okay. Does this rezoning contradict anything in the land use or the comprehensive plan or?
That's for you to interpret and decide. Although, typically speaking, if you're rezoning, say from waterfront commercial to R4, you can look at the future land use map and it does suggest waterfront commercial use there. So that's a pretty easy decision as to compliance, and that would be a no.
Okay.
However, when it comes to master plan districts and plan developments, because you're not rezoning it to a specific zoning classification that we already have, pretty much the most that you can expect or require is for those future land use categories to be respected and the intent of those categories to be evident in the narrative that's been proposed. But ultimately, that's for planning commission to interpret and decide, not staff.
I will say, right, that, if you look at the cultural resources element of the comprehensive plan, it's very much about preserving the city's heritage. And I don't see any evidence that there's a conscious decision to do that.
There was a conscious decision.
I don't in the proposal.
Okay.
I don't.
So let me talk about the height for a minute. I know that you requested that it base flood elevation versus design flood elevation. So, and I understand that. I know that's been done in Beaufort. I know that's been done in Charleston. I know that's been done in Savannah. So they'll have. But talk to me about height and is there how are you going to measure the height, and talk to me about how high these structures are going to be in comparison around. And I understand it is in a flood area, and I understand you have to build up. And like I said, I know that the base flood and design flood is common in other communities like ours.
Looking at a typical 2-story house, and Art, you can help me out with this answer, it's probably around 45 feet to 48 feet at the top, but If you go with base flood elevation, it's 45 feet, maybe 46 feet, 47 feet. I mean, again, you can't build a house at grade there. It is going to have to be much taller. Anything that gets built there is gonna be much taller. Anything that got built on the burned out section of Front Street is going to be much taller than what's around it because of the requirements of FEMA.
No, I understand that, I do understand that. So, on the, car box, residential, what do you, confirm what you're proposing in terms of the number of homes that you're talking about?
It's 5 single-family homes plus the potential apartments. You asked a question about short-term apartment units
So,
there. in the older
five
areas.
homes?
5 single-family homes.
Five single-family.
And I have go ahead, yes, sir.
And you have, I know it's just a verbal agreement right now, or I don't know if you have anything in writing, but you have talked about that those 5 single homes would not be, short-term rentals. Now, I understand the warehouse is a different structure, but those homes would not be short-term rentals, those would be people's homes.
And we've agreed, and we can certainly put with our covenants, I mean, you guys can recommend theoretically approval with conditions, right?
I know there have been some restricted covenants, like on Broad Street,
Yes,
all
sir.
those buildings there that.
Yeah, it is the intent not for them to be single, I mean, to be short-term rentals. We will
Okay.
protect it however we need to protect it.
Okay.
But that's not the plan for that.
Okay. I'm pretty clear on the building, the proposed building, and I can understand that 10 years from now, it may be different, and, you know, you could put hotel, you could, and I understand that. But I'm still I'm a little confused on short-term, potential short-term rentals or apartments. Where the marina, but the marina, I'm assuming if you were to pursue building that building, you would move the marina down towards the tar box house?
So it would be a permitting issue.
Okay,
There's some
permitting.
factors out there. The
Okay.
Corps of Engineers has
Okay.
like a dredge easement in the river, which is a little bit weird. You don't see that a lot. So we'd have to configure that based on what they
Okay.
have. But it would be bigger than it would be. And to Mr. Robinson's question about the cultural issue and Mr. Sawyer's commentary about the shipbuilding and maritime heritage of this section of Georgetown, I'm not sure what's expected, but I just would remind you, we plan on a significant expansion of the marina, which is certainly public, with public day docks and public access to that. So I'm not sure how to better honor the waterfront genesis of Georgetown, and more waterfront access for the public. But if that's helpful to you, maybe you think it's not.
First, does this conform to the future land use map?
This proposed rezoning.
Yes, the proposed zoning.
So again, it kind of hits back to my last statement of if it was R4 to core commercial,
Right.
or waterfront commercial to R4, then no, because that waterfront commercial area, the future land use map shows it maintaining waterfront commercial. However, because you have a master plan district, like a mini plan development, and you have multiple types of uses scattered throughout, all we can ask is that those classifications are respected in the narrative, and that those uses are continued throughout the district. So obviously, you wouldn't wanna have a business or industrial park master plan district here. You could definitely make a case that that does not meet the future land use map. But again, this is up to your interpretation. However, I do wanna point out one thing in terms of the short-term rentals. If you look at their permitted uses table, it is not listed as a permitted use,
Okay.
which means that they would have to obtain an approval from the Board of Zoning Appeals by a special exception application and review process to be able to utilize anything on any of these parcels for short-term vacation rental purposes.
So
Which-
that includes the warehouse.
Correct, yes ma'am.
Okay.
So it's not specifically listed under use classifications, but if you look at the other uses as defined in, where they reference existing zoning classifications, and you look at the 2 stars, the 2 asterisks, they would have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals, which would require notification of every single property owner within 200 feet of the property, a public hearing, opportunities for public input, and so on and so forth. So I did just wanna make sure that that was clarified, and that doesn't just stand for the short-term vacation rentals, that stands for any uses that are not explicitly listed in this document. And I will say, they included that at staff's recommendation, so that, you know, the boards could have more oversight and the community could have another option for input down the road if changes were to occur.
And we do think, with keeping with the future land use map question, that, you know, marine expansion is certainly, in keeping with waterfront commercial.
Mhm.
I mean, that is in keeping with the spirit of the way that area was set forth.
My last question.
Yes, sir.
So the bulkhead, that's been approved by the state, but it's under appeal, is that correct?
There is an administrative law challenge, yes, sir.
Okay, there's an administrative challenge, okay. So the bulkhead will go in front of the tar box,
I'll tell you what,
Yeah.
hold that thought,
okay.
that's for you.
No, I appreciate